Coming up on All About Android, it's me, Jason Howell, Florence Ion, Ron Richards, and our guest, Mishaal Rahman from XDA Developers. We talk all about last week's news, the XDA and FX Tech collaboration phone, the Pro 1X with Mishaal. Also, Amazon unboxing, well, actually, it turns out it's not Amazon, it's Motorola unboxing the new Razr 5G phones before shipping and unfolding them or folding them, something, whatever. There's fingerprints on these devices, and there probably shouldn't be. A Cyberpunk 2077 edition of the OnePlus 8T. Flow shares a bunch of alternatives now that Google Play Music is dead. We've got your emails and more next on All About Android. All About Android is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether your employees are working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Linode. Simplify your cloud infrastructure with Linode's Linux virtual machines and develop, deploy, and scale your modern applications faster and easier. Get $100 in free credit when you create your account today at linode.com/twit or text TWIT to 474747 for a direct link to the offer. And by Mint Mobile. Get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $30 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free. Go to mintmobile.com/Android. Welcome to All About Android, episode 497, recorded on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. Your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Florence Ion.
Yeah, you are.
How thankful are we to be together on this Tuesday night with nothing going on in the world, and all we can do is talk about All About Android. Like, it's a great life. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the most important news today is definitely Android news, and that's why All About Android doesn't stop. Not for November 3rd, 2020. Oh, no. We got lots of news to talk about on the Android side of things, and we're happy about that. Joining us once again on the show today, Editor-in-Chief at XDA Developers, Mishaal Rahman. It's so good to have you back, man. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Jason. And yeah, I'm definitely glad to be here to talk about, you know, the most important news of the week. Definitely. Mm-hmm. Nothing else is going on in the world right now.
Mm-hmm. Nothing else.
Nope. We've got a doc, and it's filled with stories, and these are really the only stories that need to be discussed on a day like today. And I'm thankful about that. We're also going to talk a little bit about your phone. That's going to come up in the hardware section, but we talked a little bit last week about the XDA announcing the new phone. So we're going to pick your brain on it a little bit and have you kind of tell us your perspective on this new device. So we're excited to have you on today, and a whole lot more. So I don't know. Why don't we just jump right into it? It's time for the news.
I'm sure we have a historic turnout for this edition of Android News.
Never had as many people turning out for this Android news. No way, no how.
Well, I would say that one of the hottest topics amongst Android news for this year has been COVID-19 and how technology is used to help with contact tracing. I mean, it is a key issue in All About Android. Mishaal, you've been continuing to update a list over on XDA about all the countries that are using Google and Apple's exposure notification API for COVID-19 contact tracing. In fact, I have contact tracing. I have New York State's app, by the way, which I don't even know if that's. I believe it's using the Google's API, but I have New York State's app that does has the whole thing, the contact tracing aspect of it. How do you think the system is working so far? Is it actually being effective in any way, or do we have any way to even tell that? Or
well, the unfortunate part is that it's taking way too long for so many U.S. states to even develop their own app. Let alone, you know, the fact is, why does every U.S. state even need their own app? Why does the District of Columbia need its own app? I mean, it's not like there's a physical border preventing you from driving from one state to another, right? So, like, everyone in the U.S. should probably have just one app. Yeah. And there should just be, you know, one central authority that's tracking and, you know, notifying people of potential exposure alerts. So it's kind of ridiculous that, like, in all these other countries, they've got themselves together. They have one app for everyone, but we have to wait for states to release their own app. Like, I'm in Texas and we don't have an app. There's no contact tracing at all. We're just kind of just flying blind right now.
And you're in the biggest state in the United States by landmass. That's a lot of people to not have contact tracing for.
So thank you to Wojo in the chat room who confirmed that the New York State is in fact using the Google and Apple APIs for their contact tracing. So I have it and I'm using it. And I do know that if I turn Bluetooth off, which I often do to save battery, I then get notified that it doesn't help, and that I'm not helping with contact tracing, which I feel like it's kind of a deal breaker for
notified, me. Quote unquote.
Yeah, but
tied directly into Bluetooth. So yeah, that's when you turn it off, you're going to get that notification, and it's going to be less useful on the contact tracing front. Also know that, like, it's taken however long it's taken to get here and for it to develop out to the point that it has. I still don't know. I'm still uncertain how many people outside of those paying close attention to this particular thing are even being motivated to, like, hop in and participate. Like I don't understand where the awareness around this is really coming from. Like, it seems like a system that requires everybody to participate for it to even be halfway effective. Yet really don't hear anything about it outside of, like, tech circles or shows or, a few tech articles. If you happen to be, interested in technology enough, then you go to a tech site and you read a list like the awesome list that you put together, Mishaal. But I question whether the majority of people out there really understand what they need to do to participate or why. Would you agree? Is it kind of elusive like that?
That's kind of the problem with an opt-in system. You need people to actually opt in, which means you have to inform them somehow. So, like, after each state releases their own app, we see sometimes press releases from, like, the secretary of the Department of Health of that state, or, like, the governor will tweet out. But, like, how many people are actually following those sources of information to find out this app is out? You need people to quickly adopt this app. And frankly, the only way I can see that happening is if, like, Google or Apple just straight up push the app to your phone if it detects that you're living in a certain state.
Right.
But, that's going to be very, very controversial if they do that. So that's probably why they haven't.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, right? Like, there is a lot of controversy around this idea that everybody would be tracked in some way, even though let's say, in this case, it is for the greater kind of good for everyone's health and tracking, the spread of the virus and everything. People still get really hooked on the idea of someone, kind of making the decision for everyone else to say, look, because of everyone's health, we're going to enact this tracking system, and Google has said that they've done a good job from their perspective of making it in a fashion that doesn't intrude on people's privacy as far as that's concerned. Kind of the short range, low distance Bluetooth kind of scaling of it makes it so that it's at least a little bit more controllable than this wide ranging system where everybody's identity is being passed around and everything. It's different than that, but yet again, conveying that to people in a way that they understand, that they trust the system. And if someone comes out and just says, hey, we're pushing this out to everybody so as maximum effectiveness, that's gonna make everybody really question what's going on behind the scenes, I think, in today's climate.
I have a sort of an idea just out of left field, but I was just thinking, as you were talking about getting awareness of this into the world, I feel like we have to start thinking about some sort of jurisdiction. I don't know if that's totally the answer, but I'm just kind of spitballing here. Some entity that says there is a global or there's a community issue that really needs to be addressed and that tech could really help. So let's have this sort of like governing body of sorts that says, like, we'll contract the tech companies to, we'll allow them, within these parameters to sort of do this deed because it's for the collective good. Does that kind of make sense what I'm suggesting? It's kind of a left field idea, but it's just something I'm thinking about as you're talking about it, because this isn't the first time that we're going to be running into this. I feel like, unfortunately, with the realities of the world that we live in, and how sophisticated nature is, that to have some sort of system on our phones that alerted us, kept us all, more than just a text messaging, thread from the county, something that's a little more official than that. I don't know. It's just sort of an idea.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge there, of course, ends up falling into the realm of who decides what is important enough to maybe make that, take that step. And
it's like the mask thing.
I was just going to say, this is starting to skirt very closely to topics that we don't want to get into.
I know.
That's true. That's true. But it is interesting. Like it is very, very apropos from the sense that, we do talk about privacy and security on the show from time to time, and contact tracing. It's like it's an API that is baked into our devices because of the changes that Google has made to the Android operating system. And I find it interesting that it hasn't really seemed to really pick up any steam. It seems like a really great solution from my perspective. I actually think like it's a great approach. But there's just not a whole lot of steam behind it. And it's also very confusing, right? Some states like Texas don't even have an app, and that's just I don't know. I guess it's probably not going to do a whole lot if there isn't some sort of combined unity on the topic, and that just seems to be where we're at right now with that. So
exactly.
Well,
but agreed, Ron. Sorry, Mishaal, what was that?
So it might be difficult to get people involved in doing something that requires them to actually go out and physically put something on, like a mask. But we've seen that Google can quickly push out features that can save lives, like the earthquake early alert system that they're testing in California. I'm fairly certain that wasn't opt-in. You're automatically sent those notifications if you're in an affected area. It's using the same earthquake early alert systems that's already in place, that you get text messages for. But this is just sending it out to anyone who has an Android phone who happens to live along the coast of California. So they can do that. It's just they need the support of the government and people to already be on board with this kind of feature to be rolled out to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. Well, okay, so we started with kind of a heavier topic. Let's transition into something that's so far on the other side of the wheel, but kind of weird in and of itself. Apparently, so we have the new Motorola Razr 5G devices shipping out to people. Apparently, when they're coming from Amazon, and I'm not sure if this is happening with every one of them, but they have on their listing on Amazon for the Razr 5G, it says the Razr was meant to be shipped in the unfolded position. However, in order to better protect the display, we have folded your Razr. It's safer, but may not look as elegant as we hoped. We apologize if you see fingerprints on your device, but we assure you your Razr is brand new. So from what that sounds like, Amazon has been opening up sealed Razr 5G devices as they're being shipped out to close the device to protect the screen is what they're saying. So I applaud the effort to protect a device, although it does kind of pose the question, like when you receive a $1,400 device and it's obviously been opened already, though you bought it brand new. Does that change things? Does that change your perspective? Do you feel ripped off or in some way, or what? How do you feel about that? What do you guys think?
So this story has actually had a few updates as it's been developing. So originally, just based on that statement that you just read from Amazon, people thought that it was Amazon who's actually opening it up and unfolding the Razr and then putting it back in the box. But I believe a few publications like Ars Technica and CNET got a statement from Motorola saying that they were the ones who were opening it up at the factory and putting it back in the unfolded position and then shipping it out to people. So it's still, I guess, factory new. So no third party is opening it up. But
well, that's good.
There have been some odd cases of people opening it up and noticing the screen protector is a little off center or there's smudges on it. So there's still some questions there. But Motorola says no one else except them is unfolding it.
Okay. Well, that's better because it would be very, very questionable if Amazon employees were going in there. And that did seem just kind of weird. Like, it doesn't seem like something that Amazon like that I've ever even heard of before. But if Motorola is doing it, like, why would there be fingerprints? Like, I would imagine they're probably so careful on packaging these things to begin
gloves.
with. Yeah, I would think so.
You better use gloves because, again,
I would hope
COVID
so.
times.
Yeah, totally.
It's probably so just bizarre. Like at like the very end of their assembly process, like their machines are already set up to fold it and like put it in the box and factory seal it all automatically. But then they're going in there, like they notice that it's probably a bad idea to ship it folded. So they're going in and unfolding it before they ship it. Or sorry, the other way around.
Right. Yeah. Well, and what's also interesting about this is the prior version of the foldable Razr device that came out earlier. Was it earlier this year? Man, it's been a long year. It was shipped in the same way. So I wonder what they learned. Did they just end up getting a bunch of returns saying, hey, when it arrived, the screen was all messed up, or not really quite sure what leads to that? There must have been.
Yeah. There has to be some sort of feedback loop to cause that, and they didn't realize it until after it had already been packaged and that sort of thing. I'm just trying to think about the manpower it's taken to repackage things, right? Because because clearly that is done by machines, and then someone then is undoing it and doing it by hand, gloves or not. Why their fingerprints is, that's just crazy to cop to that. But yeah, I gotta imagine they had they found a flaw in the shipping design, and that caused them to do it. That has to be the reason.
Must be. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, they're probably not moving that many units, so I don't think it's that much of a burden.
But they probably that's a good point. That's a very, very good
Razor
point.
burn.
Imagine razor burn. I like that. But imagine the meeting where they go into how much they spent on the tooling and design for the packaging robot to do whatever it does to make the packaging. And then they identify that there's a flaw in it and it's cost too much money to fix it. So when the solution is to do it by hand, that's a problem, right?
Yeah, totally. It's a lot of time spent to undo something from, further away in the chain. So anyways, interesting. All right, Flo, you got the last one.
And now for some really exciting business news, just to kind of round off this news section. A new report from Business Korea reports that Samsung is looking into supplying its Exynos chips to third-party brands like Xiaomi and Oppo. So if this tracks, we'll see Xiaomi and Oppo phones with the Exynos 1080 under the hood. Now, this isn't the first time that Samsung has done this. Of course, it says follow the Vivo X30 series, which had an Exynos 980 chip. So those aren't the phones. That was kind of the first phone to be known with an Exynos chip inside of it. We've seen this happen the other way too. Samsung actually launched the Galaxy S20 in South Korea with Qualcomm chips. Usually that's where you'd kind of see those Exynos chips come through. This maybe calls on the chips, the Exynos chips being reworked as a different tier of mass market chip, just kind of something that I was thinking about earlier when I was making my notes for the show. Is this, is Qualcomm taking the reins and just kind of becoming the supreme chip maker? Is that what we're going to here? Mishaal, I wanted to pick your brain about this. What do you think? Where does the Exynos chip really fit into the world of smartphones?
Well, there's a lot of interesting things happening with chips in general, but in terms of Samsung, there's been a lot of monumental shifts. I believe it was either late last year or earlier this year, but they canceled their custom CPU microarchitecture designs. So now they're expected to just use stock ARM designs. And that's a big shift for them because they've been designing their own CPUs, and frequently when you compare them against Qualcomm's designs, they just, lag in performance. On the GPU side, they signed a deal with AMD actually a few years ago, and we're waiting on the fruits of that development probably in 1 or 2 years from now to see, what kind of GPU they'll put out in a future Exynos chip. So there's a lot of interesting things going on with their chips right now. We can see they're lagging behind in CPU and GPU performance, which is why the S20 in South Korea had the Snapdragon 865. It was really embarrassing. I mean, supposedly it was really embarrassing. I imagine it probably was embarrassing for their, Exynos team to not have their own chip in the phone sold in their home country. So, they're clearly retooling their designs. They haven't given up on, Exynos chips, far from it, but they're rethinking how they're going to approach their CPU and GPUs.
And do you think at some point we're gonna their end game, Samsung's end game, would be to have the Exynos chips in US released phones? Because that's always been an interesting shift too, is that the same phone releases overseas with Exynos, here with the Snapdragon. And I don't know, I have to imagine at some point that's on their roadmap of all right, we just got to get these to a point where we feel comfortable doing it everywhere, because why wouldn't they want that everywhere?
Yeah, I'm sure they'd love to do that. Obviously, it would move a lot more of their own products. They'd make a lot more money off of it. And I believe they actually did do that once. I think it was with the Galaxy S5 or the S4. It was around the same time the Exynos, the Snapdragon 810 was burning everyone's pants because of how hot it got in phones.
I remember that.
So Samsung just said, we're not going to ship that. We're going to use our own Exynos. So maybe we'll see that in the future. They haven't done it. They've been partnering with Qualcomm for so long for the US models.
So long. Yeah.
But, that's just business,
Sure. Well, yeah. And I mean, there is awareness, at least here in the US. We're so used to seeing, the Snapdragon releases on these premium devices that, maybe there would be some sort of awareness around that to be like, oh, wait a minute, they're not going with the Snapdragon again. Although that's probably very far in the weeds for the everyday user. They probably don't even care. It doesn't matter. Does it do the thing I want it to do? Great. Then it's the Samsung device that I'm used to having. So
I think that's more accurate than we realize, I think. But Flo, what were you saying?
I was just going to say it is worth talking about just the fact that we only are really choosing components from a few key companies.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can feel just like this circle. It just keeps, we keep running in this circle, and I don't know. It would be fun to have something.
A little variety, little differences. Yeah.
I mean,
agreed.
How many people actually know and/or care about the processor in their phone?
No, nobody. I just mean for us. I mean, nobody really cares.
But for us to talk about it,
everybody out there,
give us something to chew on.
Nobody really cares, but it gives us something to talk about besides
the fact that they all have the same damn camera, sensor, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. Let's take a break and thank the sponsor, and then we will get into some hardware news. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Linode. Managing your complex cloud infrastructure. I mean, it may be complex, but it shouldn't be that hard. Doesn't have to be that hard. Linode believes in cloud computing for everyone. They make deploying, managing, and scaling your cloud applications simple. So you can simplify your cloud infrastructure with Linode's Linux virtual machines and develop, deploy, and scale your modern applications way faster and way easier. So more than 800,000 developers choose Linode. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Well, they give you flat pricing across all 11 global data centers. They've got an intuitive cloud manager, a fully featured API, and they have award-winning customer support. That's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, with no tiers, no handoffs, regardless of your plan size. So you can really do just so much with that. I mean, in all different directions, as easy as hosting your website, building your app, storing or backing up media. It's really up to you what you use it for. You can easily launch and enrich your developer applications, hosted services, websites, AI, machine learning workloads, gaming services, or CI/CD environments. You can launch and scale in the cloud with their virtual machines. Use your $100 credit on S3 compatible storage, object storage, managed Kubernetes, and more, in addition to shared and dedicated compute instances. And be sure to check out Linode's new YouTube channel for YouTube tutorials. They've got security tips and more. You just go to youtube.com/Linode and you'll find that. Bryce Adams from Meteoric says, from the start, we were looking for a partner, not a provider. Some of the large providers see us only as a transaction. Well, Linode is the kind of partner that will be with us from the start, today, and beyond. So whether you're working on a personal project or if you happen to be managing enterprise infrastructure, you deserve simple, affordable, and accessible cloud computing solutions that allow you to take your project to the next level. And you're going to get that with Linode. Get started with Linode today. Visit linode.com/twit and click on the Create Account button. You do that, you're going to get $100 in free credit. And then to find out more, visit linode.com/twit. That's $100 in free credit when you create your account today. Linode.com/twit or text TWIT to 474747 and you'll get a direct link to that offer. And we thank Linode for their support of All About Android. All right, it's time to talk about the Pro One X. It's time for some hardware. So yes, last week was the week where the news hit, and we did discuss this on the show for a portion of last week's show. Of course, XDA collaboration with FX Tech to bring to market through an Indiegogo campaign, which is active right now. You can still hop on the bus for the Pro One X handset, and this is, of course, very, nowadays a very unique find, right? You don't find many slide out QWERTY keyboard devices out in the market. FX Tech had the Pro One, was it last year? I think they came out with the Pro One, and it has the slide out QWERTY keyboard. We actually had one of the guys on the show to talk about it. So his name escapes me at this point, but so it's cool. Like I had the Motorola Droid back in the day, so I have a fondness in my heart for the slide out QWERTY keyboard, and it's just kind of a bummer that we don't see it very often. That presents an opportunity for you guys, Mishaal, with the Pro One X. So I'm just kind of curious as far as this device goes, like where did this concept come from for the folks at XDA? I wasn't aware that you were considering creating a phone, but it sounded through the announcement and folks that I follow on Twitter that this is something that you've been tossing around possibly for a little while. Like where did this idea come from? So before I start, just a quick disclaimer that I'm not actually like an official spokesperson or anything for the project between that XDA and FX Tech, but from what I know, this project is the brainchild of Nirav, who recently joined XDA earlier this year as Chief Content Officer. He is pretty familiar with the guys at FX Tech. They both live. He lives really close to their headquarters. They talk all the time. They've been in communication for a while, and it's just something that he really wanted to get started on because, what if XDA made a phone? Why not? We talk about phones all the time. We have a community full of people who develop Android custom ROMs for phones. So what if we made our own phone and shipped one of the most popular custom ROMs available on it? Indeed. And it speaks to the, to the fan base of the XDA site. Of course, XDA it's a site for people who aren't just passive consumers of technology. It's for the person that is really interested in getting in there deep with the technology. And, that ends up on the kind of the more intricate side of hardware. That ends up in definitely in how you customize with software and really kind of alter. And Lineage OS is one example of that. I guess one of the big questions that it seems like people have been asking about this phone since it's been coming out is kind of the feature set, which sets it apart from other devices. The slide out QWERTY keyboard being one, the fact that it comes in 3 different configurations: Android, Lineage OS, and then Linux. So it's very specific as far as the features that you get here that you don't get with other devices. And then there's of course the cost on the other side, and some of the features that kind of, let's just say some of the features aren't 2020, right? Like there are a couple of years in the past, but you're making up for that with some of the other features that you have here. So how, like from your perspective, and you know, I fully realize that you were not let's say the brainchild of bringing this phone to the market, but how did you all kind of figure out where you strike that balance between the features and the cost to bring something that's going to kind of be tailored, fit perfectly for your audience?
So the thing to keep in mind is that, you know, like it's easy to come up with like a wish list of all the specs that you want on a particular phone. You know, you want the latest Snapdragon 865, you want 12 gigabytes of RAM, but like securing all the components that you want, designing a phone, you know, getting a contract with an ODM, and like developing an Android build for it, that requires an exorbitant amount of money. You know, you need like a huge company or like a big, you know, round of funding to actually get started on that. So what we decided to do is to, you know, work with a company that had already launched a phone, that they have already gone through this process. You know, the people who made FX Tech, they've already successfully launched the device. They designed the phone with a slider keyboard. It runs Android. It's been certified. You know, sure, it doesn't have 2020 hardware, but you know, the hardware itself, like the specs are not the main focus here. It's more about the software. So like if you compare this phone to like the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra spec to spec, it's going to get trounced, right? It doesn't compare. But if you compare this phone to say like the Librem 5 or other like Linux phones, the Pine phone, for example, you know, like this is significantly faster, more storage, more RAM. So like that's the kind of audience that we're targeting. The people who might consider a Pine phone or a Librem phone, you know, something they want Linux on their phone, but like they don't want to have like 2 gigs of RAM or like a 720p display. You know, they want something a little bit more modern. And this, I believe, strikes that balance between, you know, a decent Android phone. The specs are serviceable, right? They're not like 2020 flagship standards. They're 2019 upper mid range or near flagship standards, but there's far ahead of like other Linux phones.
So I'm really curious. So first of all, this phone sounds super exciting, but I'm very curious, like why XDA? What is sort of like the goal of XDA sort of being aligned with this phone release? You know, is this to kind of inject the community with a little like creativity? Is this, you know, what's sort of the goal for XDA being aligned with this particular device?
So I can't speak for Narav, but I think it's a really exciting goal. And like what I would like to see come out of this project is potentially in the future, like a full community run device that could last more than like the 2 to 3 years that Qualcomm provides support for. So, you know, if you buy any particular phone with a Qualcomm chip or a MediaTek chip, you're kind of limited to how many OS versions they're willing to support. And, you know, you can't really like upgrade beyond that. But the community on XDA is able to keep devices updated, supported for much longer than, you know, the SoC vendor or even like the original OEM is willing to do. So they've updated like phones that are from 2013 all the way to Android 10 or like 2014 all the way to Android 11. So like if we could get a phone where we have almost full control over the software, we could keep it updated for 5+ years. You know, it's something we're like begging Google to do on their own Pixel phones. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we could do on a phone that we have more control over.
See, I love this because I feel like this is really core. It's core to the Android ecosystem. And I, you know, this whole world started is so full of enthusiast fans. And I feel like this just kind of continues in that tradition. And it's really nice to see. And I really like you bringing up that idea of just having a phone that we have control over, that we can update, that, you know, we care about it to its core, so we're going to keep it going. And I think that's really exciting for any Android fan.
I think what's interesting to me about that is, especially interesting to me about that, is that, you know, we're used to in tech, you know, in Android publications and Android podcasts and everything, we're always talking about what hardware manufacturers and creators of these phones are doing right and what they're doing wrong. And when it comes down to it, a lot of times we're saying that these device makers are not supporting their phones on a long, you know, with longevity in mind, adequately to support, you know, the amount of money that people are paying for these phones and all these kind of things. It's easy to complain about this stuff and want it to be better. And, you know, this kind of lines up with, you know, last week when you guys announced the news, and I saw some negativity on Twitter and everything, and I couldn't help it. Like, I had to tweet out and just say, look, like, these guys made a phone. Like, they did what most people will never do. You know, whether it's perfect or not, it kind of doesn't matter. It fits into a particular niche category. Sure, it's looking for a very particular audience. That particular audience is going to really appreciate it. And it may not be the phone for everybody, but you made a phone, and that's respectable. And if one of your kind of goals with making a phone is to address some of the things that other phones and phone makers do not do, i.e. providing support for a longer period of time, that's honorable, I think. So, you know, and obviously, you know, we'll see how this plays out over a number of years, and maybe you guys end up doing another device, and perhaps it's easier to support long term a piece of hardware when it's one of very few that you have. And I think this is probably the trap that a lot of manufacturers, maybe even OnePlus at some point, fall into, is that when you only have a couple of devices, it's a whole lot easier to give those devices all of your support. It's when you have a whole sea of devices that things get really, really difficult. So that allows you to set a standard, you know, be the example that you want to see in the world of smartphones. So that's really cool.
I feel like that's a good overall theme for today's show.
Yeah, there we go. So I just want to congratulate you on that, and I hope it goes well enough, you know, by XDA's standards as far as what you're hoping to get out of it. And you made a phone. That's amazing. That's really cool.
And Jason, I think that you know, you kind of nailed it in that, you know, there's some of the criticism around it, you know, but every phone gets criticized. There is no perfect phone. We can nitpick every phone that we come across, you know, up and down the ladder with some of those sort of things, you know, but I mean, Mishaal, you know, you guys, you know, clearly tapped into something with the amount of support you're getting from Indiegogo. How, you know, basically, how are you feeling about just in general, but the future of the phone and the reception? I mean, clearly good, but I mean, were there any things that surprised you about the reaction, or, you know, any things that pointed out that would say, oh, wow, we didn't think this would happen, or we should do this, you know, as we develop on? Basically, what was the reaction to the reactions?
So, first of all, I was totally unsurprised by the reactions to the price, the sticker price, and, you know, the hardware specs. But what I was actually surprised by is the reaction from like the Linux community. If you go to like the Reddit thread on our Linux and look for the thread where the announcement was posted, most of them were highly enthusiastic about the phone. And if you look at like YouTube videos from, you know, dedicated Linux YouTubers who talked about the phone, a lot of them were really excited because, as I mentioned, like the only options they had before this for Linux phones were like the Pine phone and the Librem 5. And I don't want to diss them because they're doing an amazing job. They're going from a completely different approach. They're trying to own as much of the hardware possible, you know, as they possibly can. You know, with this phone, it's being made by an ODM. You know, we don't own like the Qualcomm chip that's in it. We don't actually own like all the hardware that's going into it. So like they're targeting like a slightly different audience, but you know, people are excited that a phone can run Lineage and Ubuntu Touch, and it has somewhat modern, you know, specs. You could actually use it to run stuff rather than, you know, be, you know, horribly underpowered with whatever you want to run.
Yeah, indeed. So folks who want to check out the Pro 1X, head over to, if they go to the Indiegogo straight, are they going to get access to the XDA discount? It looks like there's like a 28%, and I think that must be the case. Yeah, 28% off. If you go there right now, there's still some units left where you can get it for $639 instead of the $899 price that'll be later. So anybody who thinks this is speaking to me, and there are a lot of you out there, head over to Indiegogo and find the Pro 1X post there, and you can jump on board. And if you do, write us an email and let us know why you picked it, AAA@twit.tv, or once you get it, send us a review. We would love to show that off on the show. Ron, this is totally related, this next story, because it's also a slide-out QWERTY keyboard. It's just never going to come out.
I mean, I just feel like in the annals of the slide-out keyboards, everyone needs to be represented. Yes. And Mishaal, having you on, it's great to talk about all the stuff that's happening over on XDA. And XDA also had an exclusive look at the Sony Ericsson VAIO smartphone prototype. And this prototype was from years ago, and this prototype featured a slide-out keyboard design, but the keys actually look much larger than the normal slide-out keyboard, more travel-based, if you will. Keyboard hinge has 2 stages: slide-out and incline. It's got a 5.5-inch display. It ran on Android 2.1 Eclair, which is something I haven't said in years. And it had physical navigation buttons, which, if you remember way back in the day, a lot of Android phones had. And it's interesting because the Sony Ericsson Xperia Play 2 prototype was shown a few weeks back, and that comes from the same era as this phone. And so, looking at the Pro 1X and looking now at the, going back in time to the Sony Ericsson VAIO, how do we feel like this keyboard design compares to other slide-out keyboards? I mean, Mishaal, do you think that this phone ever had a shot back in the day or even today?
Well, I mean, I think if they think that it would have had a shot, they would have released it. But otherwise, so they decided to cancel it. But I think we might see a resurgence of these kinds of devices. Like we've advanced so far, and phones have gotten so thin that, like, I'm sure some of you use the Galaxy Z Fold 2. It's just a marvel of engineering, like how they're able to stack 2 displays and actually make it usable. So, like, imagine if one of the bottom was like a super thin slide out keyboard, and like top was like a super modern flagship phone. We can have some of these experimental designs come back. We're seeing companies like LG, experiment with this crazy swivel LG wing, the LG wing phone. Like, so many things are possible now that companies are deciding to try new things. Nobody wants to buy another rectangular slab year after year.
No, at all. That's what I've been saying for years, is that recently we were looking at the LG Wing. Flo got her hands on that. The various foldable devices that have come out. Like, anytime you can buck the trend of the rectangular chocolate bar phone, I want to see it. So, like, slide out keyboards, this is great. I mean, I feel like Sony. I feel like there are more phones like this in the closet over at Sony of phones that never see the light of day, and it's unfortunate because if one of these phones was released, and I don't think a Sony one would have done this, but if a oddly designed phone was released at the right time and picked up with the world, how much different would the conversation be today? We saw what the Sidekick did in a pre-smartphone world, and that really changed the paradigm of what you defined as a phone. And it feel like the last however many 5 6 years have just been the sea of sameness. And so it's nice to see, it's nice to see some changes in modern phones that can be inspired by the scrapped phones of the past.
I'm like super interested in the way that this keyboard is different than some of the slide out QWERTY keyboards that we have seen. It really does look like these look like normal keys, and I'm sure they're not. I'm sure they're, like, as I look at it closer, they're probably that kind of like pad sort of thing, that like rubber pad sort of keys. But it can kind of trick my brain into thinking that it has like the normal travel of an actual keyboard. And it makes me wonder, like, yeah, that would be a thick, chunky phone if that were the case, but maybe that might actually be pretty usable, you know? I don't know. It'd be an interesting concept to try out. Maybe the next XDA phone can have the deeper keys and see how it goes. Maybe folks who are running Linux on their phone would appreciate having more travel on their devices. I don't know. Yeah. But interesting to look at. And so is this one, Flo. You got the last one.
Oh, yeah. This one is actually, this one's got a lot of interesting little tidbits about it. So a special version of the OnePlus 8T is being released in China. Now, this is the OnePlus 8T Cyberpunk 2077 edition. I know that's something gamers have been talking about for a long time now. So this will be timed with the release of the long-awaited Cyberpunk 2077 RPG game, and that comes out on December 10th. This phone has a redesigned back panel with a large glass section of the camera, a textured center, cyberpunk branding, and yellow accents throughout. In fact, there's been a lot of commotion just about the way this phone looks. That giant camera panel on the back, it's not your typical OnePlus soiree. Now, this runs a special cyberpunk-themed version of Hydrogen OS, which is the China-specific Android skin for the OnePlus phones without the Google Play Store and Google Apps. It comes in 128 excuse me. I misread what I was looking at. It comes with 12 gigs of RAM, which is pretty, I mean, if you're marketing a phone to gamers who are gaming, you want to bundle it in with enough RAM to be able to do that on the phone, as well as 256 gigs of storage, which again, really nice cushion for whatever you want to put in on that phone. But again, it's going to be available in China only on November 11th. To coincide again with Cyberpunk 2077. I don't know. I mean, this phone comes off hot off the heels of the recent OnePlus 8T release. That was last month. It's $750. This, however, this is an Android device for a more specific market. It has, an OS that's only available in one specific country. But I can't help but think about, all the phones of the past that tried to be the special edition collector's items, and I feel like this is just kind of another one of those collector's items.
Yeah, totally. I don't know. Yeah, I'd be really curious to find out how much these special edition devices actually move, and if that's even the point. OnePlus, has done a number of partnerships with McLaren in years past, at least with the 6T and the 7T. So this is like an extension of that, but away from McLaren, and now with the Cyberpunk
and this
brand,
is $600,
which I actually really like the look of this.
By the way,
it's kind of cool.
$600 compared. It's $600 USD when converted. And this is a little bit less than the $750 that the OnePlus 8T goes for here in the US. So just something to consider. Although I wonder if that has to do with the licensing. I don't know. I'm just here again.
It's really difficult to directly convert prices from China to like the US market because there's so many differences. The US will generally be always more expensive because of Google Play services or Google Mobile Services certification. They have to do more more certification tests for like all the radio brands that they're going to enable.
Right.
They generally don't care about IP ratings in China, but they do in the West, and that costs money. So there's always all these little things that add up to the price when they're trying to sell it outside of China.
Do they not have weather? It's just IP rating to me is like, is that really I just find it interesting that might be a region specific thing. I guess I never thought about those little things.
Yeah. Well,
that's another story for another day.
Yeah. I mean, we know that OnePlus builds in protection for weather on their devices, and it's just whether they actually pay for the certification and get that on their device like they did the 8 Pro versus the OnePlus 8 that reportedly had the same protection, but they didn't get the IP rating, and that saved cost, or at least that's my understanding of it anyway. So maybe in other markets, they just know, like, oh, it's okay. We don't need the certification. We know it's there. I doubt
It's
it.
like being a realtor without a real estate license.
Right. Totally. It's a cool looking phone, though. I got to say, I kind of never thought
good for
black and
OnePlus
yellow
for
on a
nabbing.
smartphone.
That's good brand recognition for OnePlus. Cyberpunk 2077. Gamers can't stop talking about this game they've been waiting for so long, and now there's like a phone you can get with it. Someday this phone will be on eBay.
It's all marketing.
Yeah.
That's what you chalk it up to. You wonder about the sales, and it's niche sales. Same thing with the McLaren thing. It's just a partnership.
If it was like a Hello Kitty phone or something, you know that I would be singing a slightly different. I'd be a little more
fairly certain if you were able to travel to Japan, you could find a Sanrio based phone. I'm pretty sure it's got to be somewhere in Shenzhen.
Guys, I gotta tell you, the things getting me through these days, I just go on Instagram and I look at just like the stuff you can buy there. That's all I'm gonna do when I go to Japan.
AliExpress.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's
looking
take
at
a
the
pause.
Chinese.
What was that, Mishaal?
I was just gonna say, like, why do these like, it's marketing, but you got to consider, like, why is it only China? You just look at the Chinese market and how hyper competitive it is. Like, this is one of the only ways that new phones can really stand out among the crowd. There's just so many phones every week. It's even crazier than like a market like India. So, Cyberpunk Edition, that's one way to stand out.
That's a really good point.
It's a very good point. Yeah. All right, so let's take a pause in the action and let's thank our next sponsor. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Mint Mobile. And breaking up with your old wireless provider just got a whole lot easier thanks to Mint Mobile. They were the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, and now Mint Mobile is introducing their unlimited data plan for just $30 a month. Let that sink in for a minute. Process, think about it. An unlimited plan for $30. So how much is your soon-to-be ex-wireless provider charging you? And let me tell you, I've paid far too much for unlimited data over the years. I've been with both Verizon and T-Mobile, and it's the point where you don't want to see the bill because we're high use users of phones. I can't not have an unlimited data bill, and it gets pricey. But Mint Mobile is bucking that trend, and they are, for people like me, and it might be like you, that hate your phone bill and ready to cut ties with big wireless. Mint Mobile offers their premium unlimited plan for just $30 a month. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes significant savings on to you directly. Any plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with your existing contacts. And if you're not 100% satisfied, Mint Mobile has you covered with their 7-day money-back guarantee. So jump right in, take a chance, break up with big wireless, and switch to Mint Mobile's premium unlimited data plan for $30 a month. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $30 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Android. That's mintmobile.com/Android. Cut your unlimited wireless bill to $30 a month at mintmobile.com/Android. And we thank Mint Mobile for sponsoring All About Android and sponsoring savings when it comes to wireless plans. It's about time. Thank you.
Indeed. Love it. Thank you, Mint Mobile. All right. It's we've got some good stuff in the apps block, so let's get to it. The good stuff is coming after this story. This story is like the good stuff, and then the good stuff is next. So hold on for a second. But before we get there, just real quick here, apparently the Play Store is testing a feature that allows for feature comparisons between similar apps. Right now, there's a compare apps section that some users are finding. So this isn't like for everyone. This is one of those things. Google loves to do it. The server-side switch for a handful, a certain group of people. And apparently this compare apps section appears in the listing of particular media apps. I think the example shown was VLC was one app. I checked on my phone and I didn't see it. But at the bottom of an apps listing, it has this compare apps section, and it shows just like a tabled area side by side of a few other choice apps that fall into that category. Some headings like, in this case, ease of use rating. So it rates it on the ease of use. offline capabilities? Does it support streaming and casting? What is the visual quality, so like up to HD or beyond, control types. And I don't know, just kind of a good way to check an app side by side. I do wonder how an app is selected to be in that carousel, because there are a heck of a lot of apps that probably fall into any category that would be comparable. And how do you end up as a developer? How does your app make it into this comparison table? A lot of developers would want to know how to do that. And I'm sure it comes down to number of downloads, stars, ratings that people are giving it, but it's probably even beyond that. But well, kind of a cool way to check the quality of apps. I hope it's one of those features that we'll actually see, and not one of those features that's tested and then disappears into nowhere. But that is that one. I knew there probably wouldn't be a whole lot of discussion on that one. I just thought it was kind of neat. Really, the discussion is going to be on this one.
Neat.
Well, I do have one point. Whether or not I think this will actually be rolling out, I kind of doubt it'll be widely rolled out for many categories of apps, because if you go back and look at what they're comparing, there was one section that talked about controls. Well, how in the world is Google actually finding out what controls these video player apps actually have? As far as I know, there's no way you can actually extract that metadata from the app and find out that it supports gesture controls, supports floating window controls. Those specific details, you just can't find out unless you actually use the app. So, I mean, unless they're manually curating which apps, if they're getting this data from the apps themselves, that's going to be a heck of a lot of work. And so, what else can they be comparing? And, how much useful information can they actually extract automatically? We all know that Google loves to automate everything. So, totally. I'm not sure how many comparisons they can actually put together automatically.
Are they really going to throw, some group of people, towards keeping up on all the features of these apps so that they can side by side compare them inside the Play Store? Kind of feels like they'd have bigger fish to fry than that. But
I just don't know if it's like buying a chainsaw. I just don't know if you can just compare models.
True.
I don't know if it's necessary either. I mean,
yeah,
because
I don't know.
It's not a limited feature set. Even if you have I don't want to say apps are snowflakes, but even if you have two apps that are technically considered in the same category, how often are they exactly the same feature to feature? Never.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good point.
Yep.
All right. Here's the main event.
Yeah.
Flo.
Speaking of apps that have similar features but aren't all the same, there has been a lot of talk lately just about what life is going to look like now that Google Play Music is sort of gone. And I actually got to look at kind of a couple of different local music player apps recently, because as I've mentioned, something that I'm really trying to do is go back to that old way of just having MP3s on a storage somewhere and just putting them through an app that plays them back for me. Good old school way of listening to music. And the good news is that there are so many darn apps in the Play Store to do this. It can actually be really overwhelming to try and find one that does it for you. But the other good news is that regardless of which, of the major apps you might download, you'll find that there's a lot of new features that have come through that are very essential, like casting support and Android Auto support. So again, I did this little roundup for Android Police on local music players, and I had a couple of favorites that I just kind of wanted to point out and kind of lead you down the path of trying to find one that suits you in your new music listening life. So one of a handful of my absolute favorite ones include Pulsar Music Player. Now, I like this one for its theming capabilities and also because it's included in the Google Play Pass, which I like to make use of that. Now, $5 a month that I pay for it. And thankfully, Pulsar is part of that. So I get no ads. I get everything unlocked. It's a very lightweight music playing app. It has a lot of features that you might find essential, like an equalizer, a couple of presets, ability to make playlists. There's also Omnia Music Player. This is actually a sister app to Pulsar Music Player. And this includes a lot of the same feature, plus things like a 10-band equalizer. And, the good news is both of these apps also have integrated Android Auto, Google Cast support. The real shining star, though, one that I was quite surprised because, as they say, don't judge a book by its cover, but I totally judged this app just by the page that it was in the Play Store. I just saw, the screenshots they included, they were just really brightly colored, and but then I went into the app and I realized that this app is really quite powerful. So Power Amp Music Player. Now, one of the reasons I super like this app is it lets you easily import HTTP streams. So any web streams you listen to, you guys already know digitally imported is something that I've been subscribing to for years. And they do this nice thing where they give you the URL of the stream so you can use any app that you want as long as you're a premium subscriber. And so I was able to do that through Power Up Music Player. The cool thing about that, though, is also that there is Android Auto, Chromecast, and Google Assistant support. So I have all of that support bundled into an app that also lets me stream the music that I pay for. So I know this was a local music app roundup, but the fact is that Power Amp gets its name from the fact that it does all of these things, plays local music, and it plays HTTP web music. So a nice thing to just kind of keep in mind. Also, this app has a volume boost feature, which might be really helpful. There have been a couple times when I've been in my car listening to indie content, let's just say, and the sound levels have been kind of a little too low for my stereo. So I've used this mode and it really works. It also works for speaker. So sorry to everyone who will be around you listening to your music, but maybe don't do that. Maybe stay home, because you should be staying home anyway. There's a couple more apps that are suggested on the list. So if you're interested, you can go check it out. And of course, those are just a couple that I used and checked out for a while. There's so many other ones in the Play Store, but these are just ones that I got some sort of hands-on time with. So if anybody needs some suggestions. And of course, there is the issue, well, how do we get our music out? And I feel like I need to defer to Jason for that, because he has been walking Ron and I through in our little group chat about his experience taking his music library from Play Music and sort of figuring out where it goes next.
Well, here's what I realized. I should have downloaded my music library from Google Play Music when it was still part of the Google Play Music Manager. If I remember correctly, that was the app that it was like an associated app that you can install on your phone or on your computer to make it easy to upload and everything. And it also had the ability to download like large amounts of files. If you tried to do it through the Google Play Music site, it would put a limit on you and you'd have to go to the Music Manager in order to do it. And if memory serves, when you did that, it would preserve a directory structure. It would give you your files in a structured way. Well, right now I'm working on a hands-on Android episode where I wanted to challenge myself. What does it take to get my music from Google Play Music and put it onto a Plex server and get Plex Amp working? And I thought it was going to be easy. And I mean, it is easy to get all that stuff through. Now it's through Google Takeout, right? Which is Google's tool for getting all of your data for the most part. But what I ended up with was a single folder with almost 10,000 MP3 files in it.
Oh, that's painful.
And it's just there's nothing organized at all. The only organizing factor would be the ID3 tags that are embedded inside of the MP3s. File names are all what they were originally, and those are all over the map, right? And so I'm trying to import that into Plex, and it's just not working. Everything ends up going into a folder of unknown artist and then unknown album and then 10,000 songs in that thing, and it takes a million years to load because there's 10,000 songs in it. So I thought it was going to be easy, but it's a real pain.
I feel and we were talking about it before the show, and I imagine we'll continue to talk about it after the show, but if the ID3 tags are there for the MP3s, it shouldn't matter whether or not they're all in one folder or not. And is there an issue with Plex and Plex server in terms of how it's reading and parsing that information? You would ask me if I had these kind of problems, and I didn't pull down from Google Play Music because I was always pushing up to Google Play Music, right? So I've had a single hard drive, a single desktop with all my music for going back to 2005 or whatever, and that's what uploaded to Google Play Music. And anytime I got something new, I would go to that computer, I would save those MP3s in that structure, and the Google Play Music manager would send it up. So I didn't download anything. Like my concern about what I lost from Google Play Music was all the music that I added in Google Play Music, which I never owned because I never bought. Trying to figure out how to get a list of those songs in the library so I can go buy those MP3s and add them to my library. But when I definitely had this music collection before I had Plex, and when I added the Plex server, I clicked on music and they were all just there. I told it what folder was in and it worked. And but they were already organized by folder. So I can't tell, but I gotta imagine they can use the ID3 tags to get that information into Plex and sort it. I feel like it's a Plex problem, not a Google Play Music problem.
This also, by the way, just FYI, this sounds like a very 2005 problem.
It really does.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I suddenly find myself in this
like,
weird position.
Seriously. Yeah. This is why I'd uploaded my music into Google Play Music in the, back in the day. And I know that was back in the day and I shouldn't be bringing it to now, but it just adds into all the sort of frustration and how messy this whole thing is. I know they really tried to make it a smooth transition, but it just, I'm sorry that you're going to have to do this.
I also went through the Google Takeout route that Jason mentioned, and the playlist output that you get from Google Takeout is just literally a CSV file, which is pretty useless for most music media players. I found a Python script that's hosted on GitHub that converts that into like an actual M3U file. So that actually saved my butt because I had so many playlists to convert. And then where did I go after Google Play Music? Well, I found an app. I revisited an app that I actually used to use a long time ago called Cloud Player by TWiT, and it basically lets you turn your existing file hosting service like Dropbox, Google Drive into your cloud music service. So like you upload your files there to your personal Dropbox or personal Google Drive, and you can stream it to any device that supports the app. So that's sort of like, it's not as elegant a solution as Google Play Music was, which worked on so many different platforms, and you don't have to worry about taking up so much storage of your own personal storage, but it works. It's one solution people might look into. Plex is another good one. I also migrated over to YouTube Music, and I'm kind of happy with how many features they've been adding recently. It used to be pretty bare bones, and Google's promises of adding features that after they killed off old service, like all the missing inbox features in Gmail, they don't live up to their word, but they are adding a lot of the things that they promised they would add in YouTube Music.
Yeah. And I find myself, also as I go through this and the pain points of it and, realizing, okay, well, now now I would be using PlexAmp to access this or, Cloud Player to access it, let's say. It's already there in YouTube Music. So why don't I just use that? And what it comes down to is, I agree with you, Mishaal, they've been making some changes and they've been improving it. It's not quite there, but what is still out of whack for me when I go to my own library in YouTube Music is finding an album is so painful. It like loads, and I know we've talked about it before, so I'm sorry I'm beating a dead horse. But when you go in to find an album or an artist or whatever, and you scroll through, it's like it loads up like 10 or 15 artists, and then you go down to the bottom of the list, and then it loads and loads and loads, and then it gives you 10 or 15 more. And if they would just fix the kind of the browsing component of me accessing my library there and make it as seamless as it was on Google Play Music, as it probably would be if it was on Cloud Player and these other places, then I wouldn't feel I wouldn't feel like it was as necessary for me to do something else. Like I might not even use YouTube Music for its music service, but maybe I'd use it as my cloud locker because the music's already there. It's already sorted. It's just a pain in the butt to get to anything right now, and that destroys it for me. I hope that they fix that, and if they do, then maybe I would change my mind, but they haven't yet, and so I'm looking. But anyways. Good stuff. Everyone should definitely check out Flo's article. Go to Android Police and find the 8 best local music players on Android. Now that
good job, Flo,
is dead.
Thanks.
Dun dun dun.
Oh, Google Play Music.
Yeah. All right. Coming up, we have some feedback. And you can send in feedback to AAA@twit.tv or 347-SHOW-AAA if you like. Ron, you've got the first one.
All right, I do indeed. I was just checking if Google Play Music still loads in the browser, and it does. Which I think is funny.
It still loads for me too. Yeah.
I'll keep using it. Okay, our first email comes in from Jeremiah, who says, I would be deeply disappointed with Samsung or any Android manufacturer if they stop including the charger in the box. And for context, the last week we were talking about how Samsung is rumored to be following Apple with removing the charger and the cable and all the accessory aspect of the phone and just shipping just the phone. So back to Jeremiah's email. Normal people like me upgrade their phone every 3 years, and that meant when I upgraded my Galaxy S7 to the S10e, I had to purchase new USB-C cables, and having bought only 2 phones in the last 6 to 7 years, I was left with only 1 power brick for my phone. So I recently purchased a 3-pack USB-C cables for multiple rooms in my car and a 4-pack of power bricks for my 2 wireless chargers and the smartwatch, none of which came with a power brick of their own and come with micro USB cables. By not including a power brick, most people are forced to buy a third-party accessory, which if not carefully researched could be hazardous. And goodbye to the Green Initiative, as I'm now ordering 2 more packages from Amazon for those power bricks and cables. And Jeremiah is absolutely right. This is the kind of position that Juan Bagnell brought up a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about it, which is this is seemingly like a green initiative by the manufacturers, but in turn is actually creating more waste because there's more third-party accessories that need to be purchased, more shipping materials, and it goes down the line, and the ramifications of this are much larger. Mishaal, where do you net out on this? Do you think that it's a mistake for Apple and Samsung to not include a power brick and a charging cable, or is it the right direction for the environment?
So, first of all, I mean, of course, Apple is being criticized heavily because not only did they remove the charging brick from the box, but people who are upgrading from an older iPhone, they have to get an adapter just to use one of their existing power cables with their new iPhone. So that's one of the main criticisms, definitely valid criticism, but I think it is a net positive for the environment to remove the charging cable and brick from the box because, well, first of all, the box themselves, all the boxes can be much smaller now because they only have to pack like the phone and a handful of like little booklets with it and the SIM card tray. So that's one reduction of like plastic and material and packaging and all that business and shipping. They can pack more shipments of smartphones into trucks and planes and etc. So it's a cascading effect there. Some people will have to buy accessories that they don't already own. But, for us, we get so many, like, imagine like us, like we have so many power cables and bricks already that if we don't get a power cable or a brick with a new phone, who cares? We already have like 10 different ones we can throw on there and they all work. So eventually, if most people probably won't need to buy one, as excluding like the iPhone case, because that's Apple being Apple, they switch from one port to another port. But most phones have USB-C ports now, and a lot of people probably have USB-C charging cables and bricks. You don't always need the fastest charging cable and brick just to charge your phone. You could use an old one that worked fine. So I think over time it'll be a net positive on the environment. People aren't going to be happy with it because they're feeling like they're getting cheated out. Probably they're going to remove the cable and brick and then charge you like $60 just to buy one on the side.
And that's a fair point, Mishaal, until USB-D comes out. right? And then here we are, we're like until they change, or until Apple comes up with a new spec that is, like the whole ancillary, support infrastructure of these phones does historically has changed every 4 to 5 years, and then that's a whole new set of cables and bricks and all this sort of stuff that you need to get. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be a net positive. I don't know if it's going to be as much of a net negative as some people think about. I do think it's weird. So
yeah. I'm not actually too concerned about another port being introduced, because we're kind of seeing the industry come around USB-C. It's being used for all sorts of things, for data transfer, for video output. 100-watt plus charging standards are being developed. It's going to need some more enforcement. I believe like a few months ago there was a report that the European Union is considering like requiring smartphone manufacturers to use USB-C port. It's kind of iffy on what exactly they're going to require, but if they could require something like that to happen, and we could all use the same charging brick and cable that we already have for all our devices, that'd be great. But I think the industry is already kind of coming around USB-C. Even Apple is coming around, and they were one of the last holdouts.
Yep. Yeah, finally. And that's really good to see. Definitely about time. Let's see here. We have another email from Michael O'Hara, who writes, I was urged by Flo to write into the show after a conversation I had in her Discord regarding the Galaxy S20 Ultra with my carrier. I currently have a OnePlus. Yeah, no kidding. Well, hey, you encouraged Michael to write in, so thanks, Flo. I currently have a OnePlus 7 Pro as my daily driver through T-Mobile, and am kind of confused. The last time I was in our carrier store, I asked some questions about possibly upgrading to the S20 Ultra, and the salesperson basically said something that amounted to, there's issues with that phone. You don't want it because you'll be returning it for a replacement. Michael says, from what I recall, Jason used the S20 Ultra for quite some time before the new Pixels were released recently, and I wanted to know if there were any issues that were encountered during the time spent with this device. So
that's why I sent him to you.
Oh, sorry.
By the way.
Yes. Oh, okay. That works. Cool.
Yes.
That's why I'm reading it. Yes. So I got the S20 Ultra when it launched earlier this year, and I used it pretty regularly. It was not my daily driver, but I used it very regularly for my work at TWiT. In the same way that I now use the Note 20 Ultra, I shoot video with it because it has a pro video mode, and the video at 60 frames per second, you can 4K or 1080p, which is what I do because most of our video ends up 1080p anyways. I mean, it just looks great. It's a really great phone. Both of them are great devices for recording video. And so that's why I use it. And I use it pretty frequently every week. So it wasn't a daily driver device. I didn't encounter any of these issues, any issues with it that made me think like I'm not going to recommend this. I thought the S20 Ultra was fantastic. In my usage of it. Maybe there are, some issues that this person was seeing as far as returns. Like I can't speak to that. Like I was doing some searching earlier to see if there were any major issues. And like I've seen, some articles that point to this issue or that issue, but all phones kind of have that at some point, especially a device that's been out 6 to 8 months, like the S20 Ultra has. And I don't think that it affects everything. And usually a company like Samsung is pretty good at getting, solving those issues at some point. So I don't have any reason to tell you not to get it. Through my experience, I thought it was a great phone, and I'd say go for it. It's fantastic. And you might get a deal because it's, you got Black Friday coming up. So, yeah, I don't see why not.
I feel like everybody just asked for a deal. Just say, you know what? It's COVID times. Can't your boss just skim a little bit off the top for me?
It's COVID. It's Black Friday coming up. Just give me a deal. I want a deal. So there you go, Michael. I hope that helps. All right, Flo, you've got.
There we go. Email of the week. And I did not cue Berg very well on that one, but I appreciate anyway for him playing along. So this week's email of the week comes from Tyler, and Tyler writes in about one of my very favorite subjects. I've been using icon packs and different launchers for so long that I forgot that your icons can just randomly change when the design is updated if you're using the Pixel launcher. Then, when Ron said that he is anti-icon pack because it looks bad, I just had to write in with an example of what, in my opinion, a good use of icon packs looks like. I have my 5 most used apps on the home screen using one icon pack, but each of those is actually a folder if you swipe up on the icon. And
Burke, I put the video in there. You can play that while she's talking about this because it shows it off.
Each folder is grouped by category: Google, communication, entertainment, etc. Then I'm using a different pack for the icons in the folders because I like the look of all white icons on the home screen, but wanted more color for the rest. By the way, just tapping, not swiping on the home screen icon will open that main app. I do want to say for those listening to the audio-only version of this show, we have a little demo going on screen, and it's a nice Halloween-themed aesthetic going on overall with several different icon packs, but I see quite a bit of customization. So just to finish off this letter, Jason mentioned that Google's new designs removed any element of personality, which is why I love changing up the icon packs based on what fits the current theme / background of my phone. I realize that this is way more work, quote unquote, than using all the defaults, but Google's design decisions won't affect your phone's look and feel if you embrace the launcher and icon pack life. That's from Tyler.
First off, I will say, good job, Tyler. You be you. That's why Android is great. Period. Like, whole thing. That said, on the little video of his demo, his Google pack all looked the same still. They were still like, he changed the Google icons to all be like, they just basically look the same. So it's just if it's not one thing, it's another thing. So it's fine. It's fine.
I see what you mean, because they're all in the same style, right?
Yeah, they're all in the same style.
Which is effectively what Google has done.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, good point. Yeah. Very good point.
So Tyler did send us also a little tidbit that is in his video, but I'm going to read it, just kind of walk you through it. So, P.S. I know people are always looking for ways to take advantage of the assistant and certain features like action blocks. You can see that I have 4 action blocks on my home screen, and each one runs a routine that sets my hue lights to one of my commonly used scenes. Just like the main icons, I change up the pictures on each block so that they fit in with the rest of my current theme. I don't know, Burke, if we could go back. There we go. So for those watching the video feed, there are 4 blocks. I was actually wondering what those were earlier. And those are action blocks that Tyler has customized to match. Thought that it might give someone an idea for a new way to use action blocks because it's a really awesome feature that not a lot of people even seem to know about yet. Thank you, Tyler.
I would say action blocks more so than icon packs are the thing that if I had time to spend with customizing my phone, I would focus on action blocks and not icon sets. Personally, that's just me. Because action blocks are very cool and it can leverage assistant in ways that I think people haven't even realized. So
everyone has a
I
preference.
second that.
Yeah. Some people prioritize looks over functionality. I happen to be one of those people. So, yeah.
Mishaal, are you pro icon pack? If we were to look at your phone right now, would you have an icon pack emblazoned on it?
I think I align with what Ron said, about you don't really have much time anymore. We switch phones so often, who has, none of us have the time to set up these beautiful personalized themes every time we get a new phone. But, another point that I wanted to bring up is, a lot of people might feel like it's daunting to set up an icon pack, set up a custom launcher, set up widgets, set up everything in this personal, beautiful way. But, the beauty of Android is that there are so many ways to share your own themes. Like if you go to the Play Store and look up an app called TWGP, it's really, really popular in the community. You can import custom themes that people share on the community, and you can get you barely have to expend any effort to set a lot of this stuff up. Just download and import a profile that someone else made, and you can get your own custom setup up and running within just minutes. And a lot of them are really good. You can find one that suits your tastes and barely have to expend much effort to change every single little piece of it.
Indeed. Love it. Yep. It is what makes Android truly great. All of this customization.
It's what made Tyler's email the email of the week. fantastic. Thank you for writing in, Tyler, and for that visual aid. We love a visual aid.
Love it.
The email of the week fanfare never gets old.
You know what? It is.
Personal
I like the remix version.
It's an honor. It's an honor every week. We never know who Jason is going to hand it off to next to read the email of the week. So it is an honor to be able to cue it in. And really, I have to say, guys, I think if 2020, if we did anything this year that is a net positive for this year, it's that we introduced this segment.
We have a reason to play those horns at least 10 times per episode. I guarantee you at some point somebody's going to write in and say, hey, you know how you say, how could you hate the email of the week fanfare? I do now. So there we go. That's bound to happen now.
Never.
We have reached the end of this week's episode of All About Android. And Mishaal, Rahman, thank you so much for hopping on, man. Thank you for joining us to share your knowledge of everything, including the phone that you guys should be very proud of at XDA. I'm really happy you had the chance to come on and talk about it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me to talk about it. Definitely excited personally. I'm not invested personally in the project, but obviously people think XDA, so I must be, really involved in the project. And you're kind of right, kind of not right, but I am really hoping it succeeds, and I hope other people, also hope it succeeds, because we really need more competition in this industry.
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely true. If people want to follow you, I mean, obviously xda-developers.com is where they can find all of your hard work. But if people want to follow you online, where can they do that?
So twitter.com/Mishaal Rahman. That's probably the best place to contact me directly, because I post there before I write up big articles on XDA. So if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me there first. I respond to most people who DM me. I get a lot of DMs, a lot of tech support DMs, but I look through each and every one of them.
Right on. Right on. Thank you so much, Mishaal. It's always great getting you on, and we'll have you back soon. Appreciate it. Flo, what you want to talk about?
Hey, I updated my website today. If you want to just go to the recent work or where I've been podcasting lately, other than here at All About Android, you can go to flowrights.tech. That is my special little URL that takes you to my currents page, which I actually updated today with recent links to my AP article, to some podcasts that I've done recently. Just all the information you need is there. Or you can go to florenceion.com, read my blog, read my resume, get links to my social media, that sort of thing. And you'll be hearing more from me in the coming weeks. But for now, thanks for being here, everyone.
Thank you, Flo. And what about you, Ron?
Yes, you can. As always, you can go follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RonXO. And in my spare time, I do a lot of other things. And if you're looking for more stuff to listen to, head over to ifanboy.com, where just this past Thursday, we released our monthly Media Explode, where we talk about all the things that we've been watching. And we talked about Ted Lasso on Apple TV Plus. But it's a great show. And if you can figure out how to get Apple TV Plus for free, you should watch it. As well as the West Wing special that was on HBO Max. So strongly recommend you go listen to that show and then go watch some good TV. So there it is.
Right on. Keep it up, Ron. Thank you. Big thanks to Victor for doing the back end stuff after the fact. Excuse me. Editing the show, turning it around tonight. Appreciate your hard work. Also, big thanks to Burke for pushing buttons at the studio and helping us set all of this hard stuff up.
As always.
Let's see here. Hands on Android, twit.tv/HOA. Hopefully I have a walkthrough on how to bring your Google Play Music over to Plex. And if not, tomorrow's going to be an interesting day, because I'm supposed to have it to the editor, John, tomorrow morning. And at this point, I'm kind of stuck. So we'll see what happens. I'll get you an episode. Don't worry. twit.tv/HOA. And that's about it. We're going to go ahead and end the show now. Don't forget to wear a mask. Save lives when you do. Thank you so much for watching and listening. twit.tv/AAA for All About Android. Just go there. You can subscribe in all the ways. Get it pushed down to you automatically every Tuesday evening when it publishes. Thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time on All About Android. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, host at TWiT TV. Got a question for you. Have you gotten tired of how bad your photos are looking every time you post them to Instagram? Better yet, have you gotten yourself a new camera and you can't quite figure out why the images just don't look that good? Well, I have a solution for you. This is my show, Hands On Photography. Each and every Thursday, I sit down and share different tips and tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer and a better post processor. So subscribe today at twit.tv/hop to learn more.